Johnson.
And
You back. Thank you.
Dr. Judy Chu of California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me ask the panel, even though only a dozen of Transocean's employees are physically located in Zug, Switzerland, and more than 1,300 are based in Houston, Texas, Transocean moved its headquarters 2 years ago. To me, it seems the apparent underlying purpose is to avoid U.S. corporate income tax. We now know that the Transocean flagged the Deepwater Horizon in the Marshall Islands. Can anyone on the panel explain why a vessel that is flagged in a particular country, whether such companies seek to avoid safety regulations by flagging the vessel outside the United States?
Yes, Congresswoman, I'd be happy to address that. You're correct. The Deepwater Horizon is flagged in the Marshall Islands. Transocean is an international company. Of our approximately 139 drilling rigs, all but 15 are outside of the United States. And so very few of our vessels are flagged in the United States. Most importantly, that does not result in any break in operational requirements for operating in U.S. waters, and we remain under U.S. Coast Guard jurisdiction for our operations in United States waters, such as the Gulf Coast. Logistically, however, if a rig is flagged in the United States, what that requires under Coast Guard regulations is that a member of the U.S. Coast Guard conduct a physical inspection of that rig annually. When the rig itself is traveling around the world and is sometimes in the Middle East or the Far East, that becomes a logistical issue. Another requirement is that a U.S. flagged vessel be captained by a U.S. citizen. We do that for every rig in the Gulf, and all of the members on board the Deepwater Horizon were citizens of the United States. However, when those rigs are moved to less hospitable jurisdictions, we have great difficulty employing a U.S. citizen to command and chair those rigs. And so the flagging is predominantly a logistical issue, as the majority of our rigs are working outside the United States. There is also a financial tax benefit to doing that, but importantly, there is no regulatory or compliance benefit from flagging the vessel in a foreign country as opposed to in the United States.
Does anybody else have any comment on that? Okay. Well, then I'll turn to another topic. Actually, I am very anxious to ask questions pertaining to the Vietnamese fishermen in the area. I have been in touch with representatives from the area, and they are experiencing particular problems. So, Mr. Willis, I'd like to ask you questions pertaining to their plight. There are today tens of thousands of Vietnamese shrimpers that are making their livelihoods in the waters of the Gulf Coast, and in fact, they represent about 1/3 of the shrimping community in the Gulf Coast. Because of that strong diaspora in Louisiana, Mississippi, and other Gulf states, there is a problem with English proficiency, and in fact, in one community in Louisiana, English language proficiency is about 10%. They have expressed concerns over access to BP and government programs due to the language barrier. The translators provided by BP have been unable to communicate clearly the legalities for seeking damages for lost income, clean up employment opportunities, and unemployment assistance. And in fact, Vietnamese fishermen have been encouraged to sign contracts written in English by BP representatives that provided $5,000 in damages in exchange for waiving one right to sue. And a similar liability waiver was required to access employment for the Vessel of Opportunity program, which hires local boat operators to assist with response activities. So in other words, to get the job, they'd have to sign that liability. First of all, are you still requiring people to sign the liability?
We never required any sort of signing of a waiver of liability for the claims process. Never. There was a waiver of liability, as I understand it, associated with the Vessels of Opportunity program that you've described. That was destroyed, and a very simple form was put in place. It was a mistake, and it was corrected quickly.
So you are not requiring?
Absolutely
I want
not.
to hear you say that you're not requiring that waiver of liability.
We are not requiring a waiver of liability.
Okay, is there...
Dr. Chu, I'm sorry to correct the record. I'm Jim Hood, AG from Mississippi. We have many Vietnamese fishermen on our coast who did sign some of those waivers. We got a commitment out of BP to give us a list of those names, and we send translators down to make sure they know that that waiver has been withdrawn. So we're going to make sure that it did occur. It did occur for when they hired them to pull booms and so forth. So I want to make sure that was correct.
Yeah, and so what I want to make sure you understood what I said. For the claims process, there was never at any time a waiver required. For the Vessels of Opportunity program that Attorney General Hood just referenced, in the beginning there was, and it was destroyed. It was taken out of the process.
Well, is there something on the forms that say that there is a $5,000 limit for just the claims themselves?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Is there any, in terms of the claims form, does it suggest that there is some kind of $5,000 initial limit?
No, it does not. What we've said about the claims process is that we're going to compensate people for their losses. But in order to expedite the process, we're making advance payments, interim payments, to get money into people's hands within 48 hours versus having to wait 45 days or 30 days to make it happen.
Okay.
It doesn't say anything about $5,000 on the form.
Okay. Are these claims documents, these claims forms, are they translated into Vietnamese?
They're translated into Vietnamese and Spanish, and they can be actually accessed on our website at www.bp.com/claims.
Well, I want to point out that there have been some problems with the translation, and a Vietnamese priest told me that, for instance, the translation for deckhands was translated into something like hands growing out of decks. And I want to really emphasize that you have to have a culturally sensitive and culturally appropriate translation for these forms and for the outreach kind of program that you can have for these fishermen. And what kind of assistance will there be for people who are going through the process besides the translations of the forms?
So I'll tell you a little bit, Congresswoman Chu, what we've been doing. And I'll talk specifically about what I've been involved in Louisiana and Mississippi. In Louisiana, in Venice, and in New Orleans, and in Mississippi, in Biloxi. We have about 122 local people that we hired in our Venice Community Outreach Center. Half of those people, actually 60% of them, are either Vietnamese, Taiwanese, or from Cambodia. We have people working there to help us in a variety of ways. One, to get connected with the Vietnamese and Asian communities in the Louisiana area, but we've also moved some of those people into the claims center to help us get those folks through that claims process as quickly and efficiently as we can. In New Orleans, just on Monday, Congressman Gao had an expo where we had 500 to 600 Vietnamese present. He asked us if we would offer Vessel of Opportunity training. He asked us if we would open up a claims center for the day on site. We did. Recognizing that the process we have in place is not perfect, but we're going to correct the problems we see with it, he recommended 8 or 9, as I recall, translators that we should hire in our New Orleans office. We're in the process of bringing those folks in so that we can better connect with the community in the most effective way possible. In Mississippi, we've had training specifically for the Vietnamese community around the Vessel of Opportunity program. We've had that training done in Vietnamese. So we continue to work it every day and to make it as good as it can possibly be.
And you are going to get back to the people who signed those waivers and make sure that you do adequate outreach to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to.
Okay. There are so many assistance programs available, but what steps will you take to educate the Vietnamese community through the media? They don't partake necessarily of the mainstream media. Are you accessing the ethnic media?
I do not know the answer to that question, but it is definitely something I will find out.
Well, they need to know of these assistance programs, and I do have a list of the Vietnamese
I'd be happy to
media outlets here, so I would like you to make sure that they are part of this assistance and outreach program.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And are you